Hey guys, Pete here. This will be my Dark Season 3 official trailer breakdown. It dropped today and it's packed with new stuff that's got me really excited. There's so much in this, I'm just going to do a scene by scene breakdown, and then in a couple of days I'll follow up with another video going a little deeper into what it all might mean. So make sure you chime in with your ideas in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss that. Of course, this video will contain spoilers if you're not caught up through the end of Season 2 or you don't like trailers and speculation. This is your chance to leave. The trailer opens with the closing scene of Alt-Marta saving Jonas from the apocalypse in Season 2. We see Jonas opening his eyes and then walking away from the cave with the red and white tape across it. In the voiceover, we hear Marta say, "I'll help you find the origin, the one thing, the beginning for everything, in your world and in mine." This is over a collection of shots that include Jonas in the woods of the Alt-world, Stranger Jonas looking at the letter from Marta that he's holding in his hands, and a display of names, sort of a family tree that mirrors itself with an infinity symbol in the middle. We can't see all of it, but it looks like this is how the two worlds are connected, and we'll see where this is at later in the trailer. When we actually see Marta talking, she looks like she did in the second teaser when she was in 1888, where Stranger was building the time machine under the church. It then cuts to her traveling with the orb, and this time she looks like she's dressed of that time period. The voiceover continues, "Today is the day everything began. Your world and mine, from a knot that's intertwined." While she's talking, there's an aerial shot, a shot of the forest post-apocalypse, and then a split screen of Jonas and Marta both waking up in their respective beds in their respective worlds inside the Kahnwald house. There's a quick shot of someone drawing the knot in dust, and then Elizabeth holding the watch post-apocalypse. This ties into the photo that was released pre-season showing the response to the power plant accident, which we'll actually see later in this trailer. After that, there's a shot of the desk with the watch on it, a copy of the play Ariadne that Marta was in Season 1, and a black leather-bound book that's new to me. This appears to be the alt-world equivalent to Adam's lair under the church, which I'm going to think of as Eve's lair until I'm proven wrong. The voiceover changes to this older woman's voice saying, "Everything repeats itself, as none of us are prepared to let go." This almost has to be Eve's voice, since it doesn't sound like any of the known characters from previous seasons, and it's very similar to something that Adam would say. The new trio of characters are standing in front of her desk, although we can't tell if the voiceover is from that same scene. Something that stands out here is that their lip scars are on the right side of their faces when we see them in the alt world in this trailer. I noticed that it was reversed from the date announcement teaser, but I'm not sure what that means for the big picture. When it cuts away from them, we get split screen shots of characters and their alts. We see Katarina, who in the alt world has glasses and bangs, young Elizabeth that has pigtail braids, and Ulrich who has darker hair. There's a quick shot of Jonas watching Prime Marta die again, and then we cut back to the 19th century. There's several people in this shot, but we only see them from behind. We notice Alt-Marta and can tell because we saw her in these clothes earlier, and we can assume that Stranger Jonas is the one who is controlling things at the control panel. The rest of them are Sigmundus members. It could definitely be Magnus, Franziska, and Bartosz, but we can't see their faces. There's a bowl or a mortar on a table in the center of the room. The device is creating energy that looks like lightning, which is directed to a substance inside the bowl. It breaks apart and it looks similar to the dark matter blobs from the advanced time machines. Since this is the area where the God Particle Twin machine will be, it seems like a good bet that this is all part of the process of creating it. Then we see older Elizabeth at the power plant wearing a radiation suit. Her mother/daughter Charlotte is behind her, which is very interesting, and it could mean that they were brought together when they touched hands through the wormhole during the apocalypse. They look to be looking at the God particle inside the power plant, but we can't say for sure when they are. This cuts to the trio who are looking at a black blob in a place that looks brand new. This is probably in the alt world, but where exactly or when they are is anybody's guess. After that, we get our first glimpse of a cave that doesn't have the forest around it. Marta turns to look back as Jonas is going inside, and we'll revisit this in a little bit. After that, we get a couple more shots of Vinden Prime after the apocalypse. There's a hooded figure looking out from behind a truck who I think might be young Noah, but it could also be Peter. Those are the two males that were inside the bunker, so I think it's probably one of them. We see that shot of the responders with barricades and they're setting up the containment zone. This is probably 2020 or sometime not long after the apocalypse happened. We hear Jonas say, "Why am I here?" in the voiceover, and then it cuts to a different woman's voice who says, "This apocalypse also happens in our world." The voice is familiar and I think it's Charlotte, but I can't say for sure. As she's talking, we see Alt Marta wearing the yellow raincoat, riding her bike towards the power plant. We see that the background is flipped. In other words, the smokestacks are on the opposite side of the frame. This is a visual clue that we're in the alt world. Then we see Adam walking into the place where we saw the trio in their God particle machine. In the voiceover, we hear Marta say, "You believe all this? That they'll all die?" And we see what is probably Peter bearing a body post-apocalypse. Possibly he's burying Marta's body here. We then see a close-up of his face with a grown-out beard and see that he's looking at a wall of photos. I'm guessing that these are photos of all the bodies that were recovered after the event. The only one I could recognize was Justina, who worked at the police station and whose grave we saw in 2053 back in the beginning of season 2. Jonas says it must never happen, and we watch him crawling through the passage in the caves. Martha responds with the question if there can only be one world. And we can see that they're talking together outside of the cave. That cuts to the older woman's voice saying, "A world without you. That's what you always wanted." As we see the sequence of the God particle spinning and collapsing from the first trailer. There's a title that goes across the screen that says the third cycle and then changes to the final cycle. We see the trio in Adam's lair again and hear Marta say, "You promised there would be a way to change it all." That cuts to a sequence of people getting bludgeoned. The first looks like young Elizabeth to me based on the hair, but you can't say for sure, and I don't know where they're at. Then we see the same scene with Helene Albers by the lake from the first trailer, and then finally Alt Ulrich, who is probably beating Alt Helga. Then we see Jonas and Marta coming out into the desolation surrounding the cave. We hear Adam saying we can't escape our fate, and then a masked woman approaches them from the wasteland. I have no idea who this is. My best guess is that it could be Claudia, just because we don't see her anywhere else in this trailer, and it definitely looks like a woman. After that, we see Jonas yelling, "What do you want from me?" at Adam in the Kahnwald house. Then we see a shot of the Trinity Knot notebook with the entry about the final cycle before we get a shot of adult Noah. He looks like he's under the church. He's not wearing the priest suit, and we can't tell for sure, but this is probably Alt Noah. Or maybe he goes by Hanno in this world if Eve didn't change his name. He has older looking clothing, but that's all we see. Then we see Jonas turn as Eve says, "I want your journey to finally come to an end." This makes it sound like her motivation may be for Adam to sacrifice himself, and maybe she thinks that he is the starting point. That cuts to a mirrored image of two hands turning a dial of some sort. One hand looks like a young man's and the other looks older. This has the feeling that it's the same person doing the same thing at a different period of time. Next, we see the God particle spinning again, which starts a series of images. We see Adam watching what's happening at the power plant. Then we get a look at Alt Alexander and Alt Charlotte, probably setting off the apocalypse in the alt world. This might be connected to the voiceover earlier that I thought was Charlotte. The red radiation suits definitely mark this as the alt world, and we can see the dark matter rising up from the barrels. Then there is a shot of the passage with this column of light inside it. This looks similar to what was going on when Katarina was looking through the door during the apocalypse, but can't tell for sure what's going on here. We hear Jonas yell Marta while we see a shot of her in the mouth of the cave. Then there is this shot that looks like Michael's painting studio, but it's a bedroom in the alt world. It's hard to make out who's in the shot for certain, but I'm guessing it's Alt Marta and Alt Katarina. That cuts to the shot of the God particle from below, splitting open, and we hear Marta yell Jonas. As she's saying that, it looks like a hooded stranger is getting hit with the electricity, and I have a feeling this is where Adam got his scars. This is where the stranger turned into Adam. There's an outside possibility that this could be younger Jonas, since he's wearing the hood and we can't see it, but I don't know why he would be back in time. This looks like it's going on pre-1921, if I had to guess. Then we see Marta running in the desert landscape with Jonas following behind. They're coming out of the bunker, which makes me think that all of these scenes take place in the far future rather than, like, say, in the past. Although this could just be what the alt world looks like after their apocalypse, so I'm not sure. Then we see this crazy looking shot of Alt Magnus and Alt Franziska sitting by the lake just watching the apocalypse happen. They look quite content to have their lives end right there in that moment. Right after that, we see Alt Marta standing in front of Alt Bartosz, who has a bike. We see Jonas come in out of the frame to grab a hold of her. When I first saw this, I thought they were getting taken out by the apocalypse like Magnus and Franziska. But when you slow it down, you can see the golden light and realize that he's grabbing her to travel. Essentially, he's doing for her what she did for him in his world, but in a more dramatic fashion. Then we see Eve and the trio in her lair. We see the names from earlier. They're on the floor in front of the painting, and we hear her say, and thus the cycle repeats itself. Her white hair in this image had some people thinking that this might be Claudia, but the voiceover doesn't seem to support that. I think this is probably Eve. I think it's probably an aged up Marta, and nothing in this trailer really contradicted that for me. Then the trailer ends with the reverse shot of Jonas and Marta kissing in front of the caves. And it ends in a similar way to the original teaser. We hear Helga in the voiceover saying tick-tock. We see that the apocalypse is coming and the release date 6/27/2020. Since the video is already getting long, just a couple of things. Agnes is the character who is connected to the infinity sign in Eve's family tree display. That makes it look like the symbol is Tronta's father, so not sure what to make of that yet. A simple explanation would be that the infinity symbol represents that these two worlds are trapped in an infinite knot, and based on some of the voiceover, it sounds like Martha believes they can find a source. If there actually is a source, then perhaps there's something different going on here. Like neither one of these worlds is the prime world. It's interesting because that belief may not be one that she holds when she grows older to become Eve. I imagine that Eve has her plan similar to how Adam has his, and there's no reason to believe that her relationship to Marta wouldn't be similar to Adam and Jonas. I can't tell if Adam and Eve are working together, or how the trio fits into the bigger picture. It almost seems like they're her version of Sic Mundus, but they're only one person and not a group, and I don't think anything is clear. If you're wondering about Hanno Tauber, that name is Noah's. We learned that earlier in relation to the church, but thought that might be an alias he used. There's a lot in this trailer that's new, but it doesn't really give away the game too much, and there's a ton of stuff that we don't see at all. Like I said, we don't really see Claudia. We just get really short glimpses of the alt world and what might be going on there. We can see that we're going to be visiting all these different time periods, so it's exciting, and it's crazy when I think about how much time I spend thinking about this show, making videos about this show, and really I don't know what's going to happen. It's pretty cool. And with that, I will leave this there. Please tell me in the comments about anything I might have missed, anything you caught, anything you might think is different from what I thought. Let me know what your theories are after watching this. Like I said, I will come out with another video in the next couple of days where I look more closely at what's happening and what I think it all means. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.